It's Jordan. Hope you're having a good night, day, morning, whenever you're watching this. And again, I apologize ahead of time if you hear my dogs in the background. It's been a long week and they want me to be out there and playing with them. But today we're going to be talking about Schlossberg's transition theory. I tried to convince Dr. Sasso that I could do Kohlberg's theory of moral development and reasoning, but he said no. So instead, I'm crying in the corner, and we're doing Schlossberg, which is fine. Actually, it's just it's some that this is a theory that I actually work with a lot, especially at the community college level. So what exactly is it? So this theory is defined as a transition as any event or non-event that results in changed relationships, routines, assumptions, and roles. And in order to understand the meaning that a transition has for a particular individual, the type, context, impact of it must be considered. So we're actually going to go over a couple of those because all these, it sounds basic, but it's kind of complicated. So when you think about anticipated transitions, those are things like graduating high school, graduating college, those things that you expect and everyone expects to happen in their life potentially or in their journey. And you expect to start a job and in all of these things. So but unexpected can be when something doesn't go according to plan, like you didn't get that job that you wanted so bad, or your parents get divorced, or there's a sudden death of a loved one. Those are also things that can kind of throw our students off track a little bit. And then non-events that are expected but do not occur can also include not getting like with unanticipated, not getting that job. But they also go are personal ripple resultant and delayed. By personal, it's related to your individual aspirations. So say you really wanted to get into law school and it didn't happen. Ripple is felt due to a not the non-event of someone else, which can be something that you were doing with your friend and it didn't work out. Resultant caused by an event, and delayed anticipating an event that might still happen. But we also have to think about the context of the person's relationship to the transition and to the setting in which a transition takes place. So obviously not every situation that our students deal with is angelic, idealistic, and has rainbows and butterflies everywhere. There are times where students just are dealing with a lot at one time and they may not have the skills to cope with it potentially. They may not have been taught those things. And that's kind of why we're here to help them with those transitions. It can be jarring for someone who especially is young, who is not expecting certain things to happen. It can be difficult. I know in my own personal experience, when I was in graduate school, I had about 3 back-to-back things happen to me, including one of them being my dad being hospitalized, and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't expecting all of those things at one time, and if it wasn't for my professors in my master's program, and helping me work through that, I don't think I would have been able to finish. But it can be just very difficult for students to deal with these types of transitions, and they don't know how they feel about them. So we always talk about the impact it has, and there are 4 major sets of factors that influence a person's ability to cope with the transition. So those are the 4 S's that we refer to, and those are self, strategy, support, and situations. So self is factors considered important in relation to ourselves, like personally, demographically, psychologically. So that's our gender, age, stage of life, where we're at in our ego development, our values, our commitment. Strategies, basically coping mechanisms, and those tend to be things that modify the situation, that control the meaning, and that aid in managing the stress of the potential aftermath. The support is big, and that's the one we see the most, and that's social support. It's your partner, your family, your friends, your community, you know, all those types of things. And then lastly, it's situation. So we've got to ask ourselves, what was the potential trigger in this situation? What about our timing? What about the control? Did the student potentially um, lose out on a role that they were wanting? Was this previous, was there other concurrent stress, such as what I was dealing with, then assessing it. So there's a lot of um, factors that really do go into how individuals deal with stress and transition. And again, these are things that I see a lot, but I really wanted to highlight on these three in particular because these are ones that I've had firsthand experience with, where this transition theory really comes into play. Academic advising, especially in my time at Angelina College. I don't have to academic advise at Lone Star, but in my time at Angelina College, we had a very, very competitive nursing program, very competitive health careers in general. And it was difficult when you had students who were not doing well in anatomy and physiology and they just kept trying to go at it, and they didn't want to hear about that non-event that, you know, could cause a personal issue, such as not getting into nursing school, not getting into the program that they're wanting to get into. And it's really important to, when, it feels like maybe you're breaking their hopes and their dreams, but we have to be able to give them room to grow and opportunities to look into other areas that potentially they may or may not be interested in, but they have to try something, because if clearly there's something that's not working in this particular instance, and transitioning that student, there were a lot of times we would lose students because they didn't know how to transition to something else, because this is all they've ever known or all they ever wanted to do. And that is just it's unfortunate and it stinks, but that's just one of the ways I've found it really applicable. First year experiences, definitely, that's a transition. Going to college is a huge transition. Community college and or 4-year, moving away, public, private, doesn't matter. College is a whole nother animal, and a lot of students struggle. And I will say, I was one of those people that was very blessed, I guess you could say, growing up, where I didn't really have to study too terribly hard. I did fairly well in high school without any, real problems. But I was that person that was always warned, hey, college is not the same. College is harder. And I just kind of blew it off. No, college is harder. So it was a big transition for me. But I had those coping skills and those strategies and that support from my family, to help me get through all of these. Not every student has that, especially going back with academic advising. If students are, they're the sole provider in their family, and this is what they were banking on to be like their career and to provide, this is a huge culture shock. Huge. Also, transfer services. I worked in career services, but I also help a lot in transfer services here at Lone Star. I work with our track advisors a lot, and that is one of the biggest heartbreaks that you will see, is if a student is spending all of their time, their energy, and their efforts attempting to get into a particular school. I can recall one very recently where we had a student who was great GPA, international student, just top of the game, killing the game every which way, wanted to go to A&M's business school. And we he knew the reality. We laid the reality out for him of, listen, they only take 100 students a year and that are transfer, and it's very competitive. And although he went into it, this was very much, it was almost like a delayed reaction when it came to this factor, because he didn't set himself up being like, yeah, I'm gonna get in, but he was still disappointed when he did not get in. But also he was like, hey, I can just apply, next year. And it was almost kind of delaying the inevitable. He was willing to put his collegiate career on hold, and I understand the want to do that, because if he still has that to hold on to, then we don't actually have to face the fact that we have to cope with the situation, that our plan didn't go accordingly, or our plan didn't go exactly how we saw it. I tell my students this all the time. I have met one person in my entire life that said, I'm going to do this at this place, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Everybody changes. Everybody changes their minds. I tell, it's like averages like 2.5 times people change their majors. And my friend Lauren said, I want to go to A&M and get a degree in psychology, and I want to, in criminal justice, I want to go to Alabama Law School, and then I want to come back and be a lawyer at the Texas legislature, and she's doing that. She did all those things: psychology, A&M, Alabama Law School, now works at the Texas legislature. And so that is she's the exception, not the rule. Most of us are the rule. And so trying to explain that to students when they have their heart set on something is astronomically difficult. And one other thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't actually put on the presentation that I've had a lot of personal knowledge with is I also used to run graduation at Angelina College, and graduation is always such a fun, eventful time, but there's also this sense of like melancholy, especially for sometimes it's the parents, sometimes it's the graduates. It's looking back on things fondly, but you can just kind of tell that even though they've been anticipating this, like this is what they've been working towards, like this is their everything, there's this sense of like, okay, so what's next? And it can be scary. Like, it's situational. It can be so scary, especially if you don't, immediately have a job, or you don't immediately know what you're doing after graduation. I went through that at my master's. I didn't have a job until 2 weeks before graduation, and it was such a scary time. And it doesn't really matter what age you get to. The Schlossberg's theory of transition is very applicable in all of those. I mean, I can apply it to my own personal life with starting at my job in March till now, and how this theory has impacted me and my ideals and my thought processes and how I work with people and how I cope and who I talk to. You don't really realize just how much these truly impact your day-to-day lives until you sit down and you do a presentation like this, and you really think about all these different factors that could, lead into the perfect storm or the perfect scenario. And it's really nice actually getting to sit down and think about this. I know there are a million other places that this theory can impact. I mean, obviously I can talk about student life, student organizations, and student leadership, because obviously transitioning to a student leader is a big deal. It's virtually taking on the roles and responsibilities of an actual profession or job. There's a lot of different ways we can take these theories and apply it to student activities, student affairs, and enrollment management, and trying to help develop skills with our students and for our students that can help them to cope better, and to figure out who their people are, how to self-soothe, how to, I don't want to say go with the flow, because that's more of a type A, type B personality thing, but we want them to know that it's okay to hit the ground, just get back up and keep going. Don't let something be the end all be all of everything. So that's what I have to say about Schlossberg's transition theory, and I can't wait to hear from everybody else. Everybody have a good night.